Franklin, Tucker is his name, and his life is not the same since the wrongful dawn arrest while he was down in Key West. Matthew Bonnet lost his life by the stabbing of a knife, and in Treehouse kind of shack two assailants did attack.
Testify at the grand jury? Yes. Q. Did you tell the grand jurors that Todd O'Quinn said not Ty Tucker? Not that I recall. Q. No. You left that out of your grand jury testimony too, right? It was not intentionally left out or anything of the sort. I just don't recall. Q. Didn't Paula Belmonte say she knew Rory? He has this voice that you can easily identify. She absolutely knew his voice, right? Right. Q. And she said it was another man and she didn't identify the voice. She couldn't, right? Again, I have to go back and look at the interview. I do not recall that. Q. So when Mr. Tucker told you that, when Mr. Tucker said hey, if I was there Paula would know it. We know each other. She knows my voice. You didn't follow up. I didn't follow up. Q. You didn't investigate that? Did you go back and talk to Paula about it? Not that I recall. Q. No. Q. With regard to the search warrant, were you present for the search warrant execution on November 21st? Yes. Q. Were you involved in the planning discussion to get the search warrant? Yes, to a small degree. Q. Did that plan involve taking Mr. Tucker into custody? I believe so. I don't recall for sure. Q. Okay. At that point when you are executing a search warrant, the only information that you have about Ty Tucker is that he walked to the store with Rory Wilson to pay his own cell phone bill and that he dressed up on Halloween. That is correct. Q. But the plan for the search warrant was to grab him, right? Yes. I shouldn't say put him in custody but to grab him and try to interview him. Q. Try to get to interview him? Yes. Q. Okay. Was it you that decided to take Ty into custody? No. Q. Who was? Whose decision was that? That would have been Captain Phelps. Q. Captain Phelps. So the search warrant is executed. You know that Mr. Tucker told you that he feared he was going to get shot, right? Yes. Q. And you know that he was handcuffed, right? Yes. Q. And you know that he was taken down to the station? Correct. Q. And he was asked questions. Yes. Q. And he was placed in the back of a patrol car. He was handcuffed, right? I believe. I don't think I got to actually see him in the car. Q. And at this point he paid his own cell phone bill and walked with Rory Wilson. Yes. Q. What was your probable cause to detain him at that point? At that time I was dealing with Rory Wilson. You would have to talk to Captain Phelps. Q. Was anybody other than Rory Wilson and Ty Tucker detained for questioning that night? No, I don't believe so. Yes. Q. Next page, bottom of the page 1119, do you see that? Maybe it's the one after that. FYI I am in the office tomorrow, she says, need to figure out chain of custody between Malone and Kellenberger to clean up the mess when we can. And any luck with Todd O'Quinn, right? Yes. Q. So, she deemed the property receipts to be a mess? Yes. Q. Did she also ask you at one point, I can mark this, I don't know where, did she ask you at one point to unrestrict the Treehouse murder case so that she could get into it and Jill could get into it? Yes. Document marked as Exhibit 18, by M.S. Higgins. Q. What does that mean, unrestrict the Treehouse case? Only certain people have access. Q. Why would she need access to it? If she wanted to read any news supplements, print out things. Q. Can you alter things once you unrestrict it? I would have to talk to IT. I don't know if they have different access level for different people. I don't know. Q. Did you want to restrict her? I unrestricted her. I either added her or unrestricted. I think I added her so she could have access. Q. Do you know what she was doing when she was in there? I do not. Q. So it's not a matter of course for the state attorney's office to have access to these records, right? Q. So she is at the crime scene? Yes. Yes. Q. She is talking to Penny Phelps? Yes. Yes. Q. Several times a day? I would be speculating. I assume so. I know they talked a lot. Q. At least every day? Yes. Q. And she is telling Penny Phelps what she should do, right? What she should get? Yes. She would put out things that she wanted done. Q. Things that she wanted? Yes. Q. And she made the decision along with Captain Phelps, former Captain Phelps, against your advice to arrest Franklin Tucker? That is correct. Q. You had the conversation with Colleen Dunn and you said wait, right? Yes. Q. But then Penny Phelps and Colleen Dunn have a conversation and you are ordered to go and arrest Franklin Tucker? Correct. I shouldn't say I was ordered. It was Malone that was told to write an arrest report. Q. Malone was told to write an arrest affidavit? Correct. Q. Did you ever review that arrest affidavit? I did when it first happened. Q. Are there inaccuracies in that arrest affidavit? From what I recall there were a couple. Yes. Q. So Phelps tells Malone to write an arrest affidavit. Is that normal since you're the lead detective? You should have wrote it. Correct. Q. But then you didn't think there was enough, right? Right. They also had her write the arrest affidavit for Rory Wilson as well. The only one I wrote was Travis Johnson. Q. Okay, but they knew at that time when they directed Malone to write the arrest affidavit they knew you weren't on board? Correct. Yes, they knew I thought we should wait to arrest him. Q. Right, so they got somebody who would write it, right? I am speculating but yes, that Wilson that was back in December of 2018? Correct. Q. So you knew Rory Wilson was the murderer at that time, correct? Correct. Q. So you had DNA evidence on him. A. I apologize. Not that he was a murderer. That he was at the murder scene anyway. Q. Okay. Well, it looked like he was the murderer at that time, correct? All the evidence was pointing to Rory Wilson as being the actual murderer at that time. It definitely put him at the scene, correct? Q. Okay, but it more than put him at the scene. It put the knife in his hand. It put the knife that actually killed Mr. Bonnet in his hand. It put the mask that was worn by Rory Wilson at the scene with the blood of not only Paula Belmonte but also Mr. Bonnet. That is also correct. Yes. Q. But you believe she manufactured some of this evidence, right? She is not an officer anymore. She is not your captain anymore. Danielle Malone is not a law enforcement officer anymore. Penny Phelps is not a law enforcement officer anymore. You are. You have to tell us the truth. Absolutely. Q. Do you believe that Penny Phelps manufactured evidence in this case? Yes, I believe she led some of the witnesses down the road. Q. She interviewed Travis. Did Travis come up with this story or did she lead him to it? There are parts of Travis's story that he said very early on that were him. Again, I believe the questioning was relatively direct that she could lead him down. Q. She said it again. Exact same thing. She said, let me tell you what happened, right? Yes, she did. Q. And after that Travis's story changes, right? That is I do not recall. Danielle Malone. Q. Danielle Malone. Did you like working with Danielle Malone? MS. Paused. Objection. Relevance. There were some things that were tough. By MS. Higgins. Q. What? Personality conflicts. Q. Why? In terms of the way things are done. Q. Would you characterize her as a good detective? MS. Paused. Objection. Relevance. No. By MS. Higgins. Q. She is in dispatch now, right? Yes. Q. I get the feeling that you are holding back about Danielle. Did you find her to be incompetent during the course of this investigation? I found out that a lot of things that I thought had been taken care of, I found out later that they had not. Q. So she didn't tell you the truth? Correct. Q. Same thing with Penny Phelps, right? She didn't tell you the truth either, did she? Not at times. No. Q. Not at times. She went off and did her own thing and then came back to you and told you that things were done in a certain way, right? Yeah. Q. By January of 2019, how many times had Todd O'Quinn told you that it was not Franklin Tucker? How many times? I do not know. He said that this person was wearing a mask and he did not get a look at their face because they started to pull the mask because they were running away from him. Q. Didn't he also tell you that he knew it wasn't Ty Tucker because he knew Ty Tucker? He said he didn't think it was Ty. Yes, he did not believe it was Ty Tucker. Q. And he told you that? Yes. Q. So it's consistent with someone running but you didn't inform the court that Todd O'Quinn said it was not Ty Tucker? Was that to mislead the court? No. Q. No. No. Document marked correct? Yes. Q. Okay. There were a couple of videos that were ultimately, I guess, obtained or retrieved. One of them is from the Cosme Boat Marine Shop. Yes. Q. Okay. And you have reviewed that video? Yes, I have. Q. I mean that video really doesn't show anything. It's a grainy video and just really shows, I guess, maybe taillights if anything. Taillights you can see. Obviously people going one direction to the left and people coming back the other way. Q. But you can't tell who those people are. No. Q. You can't tell their clothing, correct? Correct. Q. You can't tell really their height or their weight or anything about them, correct? You could tell one is larger than the other but as for weight, no, you can't. Q. You can't tell weight, actual height or anything along those lines. Can you tell the color of the people? No. Q. It's really just, it shows kind of figures going in one direction and figures going in another direction, correct? That is correct. Q. Okay. The date stamp and time stamp on that, were they correct? Were they verified? They weren't verified at the time and they are not correct. Q. Okay. So then how do we know that is even the right time and the right time slot of that video of the incident? I mean we don't even know if that is the actual footage of the incident, correct? In other words, let me rephrase the question. That video could show two random people going in one direction and then two random people coming in another direction at a completely different time on the same date? Correct. The behavior is consistent with like Mr. Johnson had stated, but as for the video in and of itself, that is correct. Q. Okay.
3.1 is now the